Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar on data warehouse automation, what, why, and how. My name is Priyanka, and I will be your host for this webinar. Before we start today's session, I would like to remind you of a few things. All attendees will be on listen-only mode. You can type in your questions anytime during the webinar in the Q&A window that's available on your screen, and we will address them at the end of the session. I'm sure most of you already know about Hivo, but I'm going to give you a quick overview. Hivo is a no-code data pipeline platform that connects and loads your data that's lying across multiple source systems into a data warehouse of your choice, such as Redshift, BigQuery, Snowflake, and others. Hivo provides pre-built integrations with over 100 different data sources and also supports advanced data transformation. Hivo is currently used by thousands of data enthusiasts who are working across multiple verticals and who are based in over 40 different countries. For more information, you can check our website www.hivodata.com. So I will now introduce you to our speaker for today's session. Darshan Vagchauri is the Global Head for Data and Analytics Competency Head at Tech Mahindra. He has strong leadership and customer-focused skills with an overall experience of 24 years in the IT industry. Darshan has in-depth knowledge and experience in the data and analytics space and has expertise in driving large data and analytics programs using big data, cloud, and AI and ML tools and technologies. He has led strategic and consulting assignments in the past and has started new accounts, established data and analytics practice, and has driven organic and inorganic growth. Darshan has also published a blog on cost optimization techniques in cloud environments. Outside his technology career track, Darshan is an endurance cyclist and has completed a 10,000-kilometer ride last December. That's very interesting, Darshan. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar.
So, hello everyone. This is Darshan Vakchare. Thanks for this nice introduction about me, and thanks for calling out the cycling stuff. It's been a while working in the industry, and a lot of things I've gone through, especially in the data warehousing space. I remember my first project, which I did for Accenture, while we were setting up a data warehouse for G Consumer Finance. That was way back then. And there's a lot of evolution which has happened over a period of time. And changes have been kind of coming in and out with different tools and technologies being focused into multiple areas. I mean, way back in, I would say 2000, 1990, 2000, the number of tools were very, very limited. Versus what we see now, there is a kind of a gallon, tons and tons of tools which have come up into the market. So again, coming back to a topic, what I'm going to cover today is really very fundamental things about a data warehouse. What is the scope of automation? Why it is required, and how do we do it? Again, this could be like very fundamental things, but I mean, I just want the audience to kind of be a little attentive. Some of things might kind of directly correlate to your day-to-day stuff. Again, the big warehouses that we've seen in the industry have potential problems that we have kind of encountered. But again, at some point, I guess we will touch base those points. Again, there is no definition as such to what we call as a data warehouse automation. I mean, you can go and search the internet. There'll be different versions of automations and definitions out there. But again, from a very simplistic terms perspective, what do we really mean when we say automate? What we really imply automate is kind of getting things done without manual intervention. Very, very simple things, right? Or things which are repetitive in nature. For example, you're always writing a header in your if you're building a website and you're starting from a HTML file or whatever PHP file. You always want to have the starting elements. Why can't we automate or put a framework around it? That's what the frameworks are. So similarly, can there be any rules which can be placed to drive some stuff which can help us in bits and pieces out there? So again, among us, there are numerous areas where we can really see automation coming into play. And yeah, I mean, there have been various tries in the past. Few tools were kind of being introduced, trying to depict a fully end-to-end automation. But again, I guess I would say every data warehouse project I've seen has something unique about itself. Even though the domain, even though if people are talking about CRM or marketing or sales, or even for that matter, HR systems, some KPIs may look exactly the same. But how the underlying systems have been orchestrated is very difficult to gauge upfront. And there really is no single solution which says that it's an automation end to end. So we'll touch base on some of the points today in our discussion uh, and see about it. So let's talk about the benefits of automation and then what can really be the flavors of automation. So if you really look on the left hand side, just try to point options. Yeah. So I've laid down a typical SDLC kind of approach out here. We design, we model, we develop, we test, we deploy, we script, whatever things. Typically in a newer environment that we're trying to build, we try to design. We kind of get a whole lot of information. We talk to the customers, we talk to our clients, we talk to business users. We take all those requirements, we try to put up a solid design. I mean, every individual feels he or me, or even I used to think about myself, my design is the best design. But I mean, there's always better things in life. So rest assured. We also try to do all this data modeling tactics. Get a DBA. We kind of look at different perspectives. Again, design modeling, I would say, many organizations which have in a mature state, they have really orchestrated and kind of built a knowledge base. And that knowledge base actually can help us in terms of automation. You really can really if you know what is the existing sources and how the data lineages are, if the documentation is kind of good enough, the futuristic frameworks can be really built in terms of your designs and your data models. You don't really have to sit and do each and every piece of code. Yes, you'll have to touch it, but yeah, a large portion can really kind of see the automation. The ETL development, again, this is one of my favorite topic. uh, if you see over the years, in the traditional data warehousing system, we used to extract, transform, and then load. However, in the last few years, the extract piece and the loading piece and the transformation piece have kind of changed a little bit. Now we have ELT, extract, load, and then transformation. And then there is a reason to it. We used to do push down optimization in the past. So I remember when I used to code in Informatica, we used to use those Informatica push down optimizers. I mean, very, very important because you push all your processing power back to the database and you kind of really try to get the benefits out of it. But in the cloud area, I would say with the Redshifts coming into picture, with the BigQueries coming into picture, with Azure Synapse coming into picture, things have really changed. Now you really don't have to do the transformation as you're loading the data into your staging area. You kind of do the transformations after data is loaded into stage. You load in the extract as is into the cloud platform, and then you do the transformation. Those transformations 100% work on a high kind of performance area zone, and those will kind of really benefit in terms of doing your things very faster. I mean, I can just take one more example out here. The way AWS deals with Parquet files, and the way it kind of simulates the movement of data into Redshift. I think it's fascinating. It really kind of does like things really on the fly. Snowflake is another example, the cloud database. They have really come up with a very nice architecture in terms of getting things done on their platform. Again, there are multiple platforms coming in. There will be multiple scenarios. So the point is looking from that benefit perspective. I mean, do I need to do the processing while I'm kind of pushing the data, or I kind of push the data into the target zone and then do the transformation out there? Testing. Testing is another important piece. We do piece of code. I mean, let's take an example for testing would be The typical data warehouse is already there, and we try to kind of get into the data warehouse. We keep on adding new files, we keep on adding new functionalities from a business, because the business is trying to kind of do different campaigns, or they're trying to kind of get in new features into the business lifecycle. And obviously those products and data kind of needs to be tested as the functionalities increase. Can those be automated? I mean, a very simple question: can that be automated? To some extent yes, to some extent no. But if I take a little different scenario, when there is a data modernization kind of thing happening, let's say the client is moving a data from its on-prem environment into the cloud environment. So now you have a base reference as is one-on-one, and you have a cloud platform which is kind of going to be a to be future platform. I mean, in that case, really testing can be run in enough one-to-one correspondence and really can be tied up in an automated way. I mean, there are tools used, you can do testing in an automated way. Deployment, I mean, for deployment, DevOps kind of an environment, if those kind of been set up, it really helps you to kind of migrate your code quickly into the upper environments. That's very, very important. And scripting, all those little bit tips and tricks that we kind of snippets that we put into use, those can also benefit if you try to push a little bit automation into it. Again, there is no one size fits all kind of a solution. It has to be looked at case by case. As I was saying a few minutes back, it's very difficult to say that end-to-end automation can be achieved in entirety. It's not possible. Maybe we try to do it over a period of time, depending upon the maturity and the sources and the data. Things can be done to some extent, but yeah, I mean, if you're doing a data warehouse from scratch, very, very difficult to kind of attain that. But yes, as we kind of progress, it can definitely be leveraged to a greater extent. Again, the point here is the benefits with respect to automation can really be interesting. Faster time, less resources, flexibility, the quality that we are getting into we have more time and bandwidth in terms of doing different things. So again, these are kind of quick benefits we can really look at. And what we really need to think about is at a little abstract level. What really is the benefit of a change? And I recall from the past, from my experiences, many times as a developer, you feel that I can get into the code and do these things like in 5 minutes. Agreed, you can do it in 5 minutes, but the time for you to know that issue, and then you go and sit into your laptop or desktop, trying to log in into your VPNs, connecting it, and then actually fixing it in the next 5 minutes. I mean, that whole process kind of, it takes at least half an hour to kind of get that fixed. And moreover, I mean, assuming that you are not in the right place at that point in time, that something happening at midnight or early morning hours, somebody has to wait for you to get up. So those kind of pieces of automations can really be helpful in terms of fixing things. From an adoption perspective, what are the areas where we kind of really look adoption of automation? I mean, if I look from a client perspective or a business or customer perspective, things really look different. Organizations are getting into the transformation journeys, and they really want to do something different. I mean, different is not just for the sake of using a new tool or just for the sake of fun of getting from an on-prem to a cloud. Difference is in terms of performance. A difference is always in terms of the data accessibility. Difference would also mean more be achieved within the smaller interval of time. I mean, that's a very strong business case from an adoption perspective. When it comes to maintenance, I think that's one of the key. How much are you trying to reduce your manual interventions as a part of the maintenance cycle? Can a developer efficiency, can a maintenance person or a technician who is kind of supporting the warehouses, can his bandwidth be better utilized than doing some routine jobs? I mean, there would be times when we do our upgrades in our warehouses, a software upgrade, it could be a hardware upgrade, depending on those situations. Can there be increased flexibility in terms of getting that time back and doing something more creative and more important. Streamlining process is another factor which is very, very important. Lot many times, the processes, I would say, for let's take an example, there is a monthly processing or a quarterly processing, and you're trying to close. Obviously, business is on top of your head because it's a quarter end, and they want to kind of publish the reports. And there are multiple steps which are involved. You do step A, you have a good documentation. There's no problem with documentation. You do step A, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Those manual steps actually can those be better coordinated and collaborated and nested into each other, and can those be streamlined? It's very important factor in terms of streamlining those small processes. And obviously, I mean, we typically have kept it manual because we need an intervention to check the data, right? So checking the data or validations in business terms, whether the data processed at that time, is it valid, yes or not? A simple flow can actually be automated to do this streamlining of processes. It saves time, it saves dependency, there's no dependency on individuals, and it reduces the focus and the tension periods during your closures, typically from a financial perspective. Uh, and then you can really focus on other important parts than just kind of stay lashed onto it like 10 or 15 member team during quarter end, focusing nothing but only to make sure that the process is on. You can actually leverage that bandwidth to some other development efforts. And then obviously, last but not the least, the competitive markets. I mean, as hardware and software are getting more accessible, and then there's more firepower being added, getting things done in a smallest interval of time, typically the bad jobs, is of critical importance from business perspective. Let's move further, and let's take a look at some other factors, in terms of automation. So typically what we do from a consideration perspective, and then this is perhaps architectures play a very, very significant role in terms of deciding which way we take our project, or which way kind of we move our it could be the architectures could be built at a project level, independent project levels, or it could be at an organization level. But there is changes which have happened over a period of time. And as I said, with the cloud coming into picture, the platform changes have significantly uh, done an increase, have given a gain, but obviously it has to be utilized in the right sense, and things can really be happening from a can be gained from those things from our perspective. And let me give an example. So typically, if I look from an on-prem perspective and try to compare with the cloud areas, so from an on-prem perspective, we used to typically take the data from the source, load it into a staging area, do some massaging again, try to do the transformations, and then try to move into another layer, and then finally kind of aggregate and push the data into the ODS layer. Versus cloud. And cloud, I mean, cloud typically, I mean, the way to go forward is look at, I mean, even though it's a batch or a real-time processing, doesn't matter. You do the extraction and then you just load the data into the cloud. That's very essential. If you try to do the transformations on a cloud environment, your processing, you'll definitely not have, you'll feel that the on-prem is much faster than what you're doing in cloud. But again, that's the mode of traditional way of looking at things. So if you transform and do it, the loading and then the transformation, I think you'll achieve what you're trying to get it. So again, architecture plays a lot of important role out there. Source system needs to be integrated. A very good example of source system, and I would say there are platforms and tools available in the market, as we kind of seen multiple releases and multiple products kind of been launched, where they do a lot of things which is kind of no code integration, which significantly saves the time from a developer and also from a go-to-market perspective, getting things done faster. If you have such kind of features, ability, and tools in the market, I mean, try to leverage them. I mean, obviously, there has to be a weighing of what is the return of investment versus the cost of the software that you're trying to use. But yeah, I mean, if it's really dealing with volumes and it's just not possible to keep at pace with the integrations that you're doing from a day-to-day perspective, definitely something kind of no code integrations is good to looking at. Processes that need to be automated. That's another point in terms of those smaller issues that we have seen, or the bug fixes that have come into picture. Maybe looking holistically from a support environment over a period of time, what has really happened. uh, is there really problem with the data? Is it quality of the data, or it's really the breakage which is happening in terms of the connectivity issues? I mean, those have to be found out, and processes have to be defined around it, so that the code which runs, so the warehouse which kind of does the processing, is least impacted for that. Task that needs to, a lot many times we have a playbook when we look at it, that can be really be coded into your smaller snippets or your cheat sheets and kind of put as a part of an automation. And I'm sure many of you are coming from big industries, companies. There's always a term which you could call as what is the savings that you've given back to the business. I mean, those savings might be very small from your point of view. You might not feel the impact, but over a period of time, and if you really collectively look from a savings perspective for the end customer, it really kind of will be a 1 hour saved for processing, would kind of really mean kind of meeting the SLAs in time and getting the data to the customer before time. That's very important. One of my favorite topics is about this real time versus batch. So when you talk to a business user will say, I need this data ASAP. Okay. Or I expect the data to be kind of real time. I mean, always try to ask a question to business. What does real time mean to him or her? Does real time mean, is it okay to have a data in the interval of an hour or a day? Or is it okay to have a data with a lag of 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever it is? Because if that is the real time from business, it doesn't mean real time from you from a technology perspective. That means it is a batch process. Because the moment you start about real time integrations, you are really integrating a lot many tools and softwares. You're investing on real time processing. So your load and your processing is going to be monitored continuously. So whether if it's a batch that is really a batch, or it's a real time. And I'll give you a simple example of real time versus batch, and which we have implemented in one of our customer side. So there was a solar generation unit in US, which they were trying to capture the performance of the unit. I mean, obviously, how much sunlight is getting in there, what is the consumption which is happening at a consumer side. So they need to keep up pace with those demand supply every other second, and then there will be levers how to kind of add the additional surplus, or to kind of reduce the surplus and kind of let the pacify the overall generated unit into the consumption side. So that's where the real time really impacts. So any kind of fluctuations from a consumer have to be applied to the source generation units. So the instantaneous reactions for the consumption goes to the generation unit. So that's where the real time is very crucial from a decision making perspective. Versus I get a report, a credit card report, and I need it now, versus it's okay to get it a day later or half an hour later on what it is. That's also important. So I'll always be very clear on what exactly is the meaning of a real-time from business versus the batch. Existing data models. And this relates back on how we kind of model the data. And then this typically goes when the volumes are very high. Typically, in millions and millions of records have been processed and aggregated, versus which is the areas which the business uses is querying. And I'll tell you a very simple thing. If the data access from that warehouse, say particular section of it, particular data points, if the business user is querying it again and again. You can see the hit queries. You can really get your DBAs working on it and see which are the queries which have been fired on which tables. And if the volume is very high, it really needs to be optimized or kind of built in a manner where accessibility is kind of the fastest. Whereas unlike that, say for example, geography, it's very kind of little bit outlet, supply chain having an outlet and establishments across the country with 3,000, 4,000, whatever outlets that they have. But still the volume is very less out there. Over there, whatever kind of data model you put into picture, whether it's taking, and it doesn't matter, you kind of have it optimized in a snowflake mechanism or a third normal form or a fifth normal form, it really doesn't matter. Versus on something which is kind of huge in volume and is continuously being hit upon by the business for the performance queries needs to be increased. You really have to have a model which supports it. Again, these are some of the factors which you might relate into your day-to-day stuff, but it really impacts in terms of processing. Again, few more points I would like to kind of touch base. One is workload automation. Second is process automation. Third is robotic process automation. Again, these are terms that we always hear. And you can read a lot about these terms. But really, whatever implies from workload automation, typically workload automation implies your integrations are kind of being done in automated fashion. So one example which comes to my mind typically is when we build our ETL. Okay, and this I've seen more recently. And unlike the informatics and the data stage of the world, I think Ab initio was one exception for that. If you are using Databricks kind of a platform or a PySpark kind of platform, you really can build a lot of frameworks. Okay, so the time to add a new source system and get it functional into your environment is like just quick. It just happens within kind of a couple of days or so. Versus if you try to kind of rebuild and reorchestrate everything from start to end, it will take a couple of months. So those frameworks in terms of workload automations are very, very important. Identifying which interdependencies of processes and keeping a very good documentation helps you a lot. You don't really want to have multiple processes running which are kind of trying to intersect with each other in terms of either data pushing or in terms of data accessibility. So business trying to access the same data and you're trying to push the same data. If it's a real-time system, there will be a contention issues and you might face some challenges with respect to performance. So try to identify. Or there could be multiple processes trying to write the same table at the same time. You'll again have challenges out there. So try to find out what is the dependencies and how you can balance those workload automation processes efficiently and effectively. Process automation. We spoke about few minutes back something about testing. So testing is very, very important. I mean, specifically for an existing data warehouse, wherein you're trying to get new incorporated features into the system, or business trying to add new projects into the system to cater to their requirements. I mean, testing is one piece. Even if you're not able to do it 100%, try to see if you can automate your checks and balances through queries. Run those queries through a neat and clean platform. If you can build it yourself, run those checkpoints and validations through some interfaces rather than typing and querying them every time manually. That actually has a huge impact in terms of getting your processes automated. And then the deployment time it takes, it kind of is really very helpful in terms of quickly getting into the next set of environments. Last, to robotics, process automations, and scripting. So robotics perspective, lot of cases in terms of performing those repetitive tasks, which I was talking about, the data transformations, monitoring of workflows, notifications. These are small things, but if you can really automate it, so the intimating the user, the process is complete, informing kind of the next set of dependencies, saying that they can kickstart their process. If you can really break the change of manual interventions and try to give some kind of indicators to the downstream applications, I think this can be really achieved in a much efficient way. and there's kind of no physical monitoring required. You can have a checkpoint and kind of pass those kind of processes through. Scripting and manual coding, again, we do as a part of our day-to-day stuff. We definitely look at multiple areas in terms of writing those snippets of code. And a simple example, we do a FTP process, or we try to clean a file through a Unix shell scripting command, or use a PySpark code. Try to kind of have those containerized in certain fashion or in a framework, so that it can be reused regularly rather than kind of recoded as a fresh piece of code. So reusability out there kind of helps you save time. At the same time, it helps in terms of a neat and clean code, which is going to have an impact on your overall build cycles of your data warehouse. A small example, I don't know how much time we have, but I'll try to quickly go through this. There's a problem statement with respect to health insurance provider in terms of the kind of efforts they were trying to put in getting their day-to-day stuff. Typically from a quarterly perspective, the amount of time that they're putting was like 20-30 people just working over few days. 20-30% is getting impacted just to get out in terms of their processing, their quarterly closure processing. And again, this was impacting a lot of things down the line, and the severity perhaps doesn't come into reality unless and until it gets to an extreme, is what I would say. So the moment they kind of really thought about it at a little different level, why don't we automate? Why don't we really kind of cater to something which is better for everyone instead of having a manual dependencies? Why not spend one time but get it fixed as a forever, at least for next 3-4 years? We don't get into this issue till performance hits a bottleneck. I think those kind of initiatives definitely help you. So here they were using agile methodology, rapid prototyping. A change was really built in, which impacted a lot of stuff. So the cycle time from end to end when they deployed into production was really down to 2 days. Again, there are the multiple examples. I can talk to you about multiple cases where there has been a significant change once these automations were carried out. And again, some warehouses would be pretty big in size, and the volume of data which is coming in and out, like 30-40% of churning every 3-4 months of data. That's a big volume, and the reads and writes and the kind of optimization that you have to do is phenomenal. Given the days I remember in my past, when I used to kind of do a lot of physical coding, there's always, when you do run a monthly cycle or a quarterly cycle, there's always a point when the DB used to trigger an alarm. Hey guys, you know what? The space is full. You need to clean your files. So I mean, that's kind of a cleaning up files could have been automated, would have really saved the time for a DBA. I mean, first of all, something fails, go to a DBA and an admin saying that something has failed. We don't know why. Then he checks and he says that, boss, something is problem either with the table space or your file system is full or something. So then it comes back to us asking us to clean a file. Then we go back to which files do we clean up. And so this kind of repetitive task, which goes for several hours, kind of can completely avoid it if you kind of do those automations in place. A bit about Hivo, I think, I guess I'll just spend a minute out here. So Hivo, I think, also brings in that no code kind of philosophy in the picture. There's a lot of integrations I've seen that Hivo has done. I've not physically implemented Hivo in any of its implementations, but yeah, it's pretty brand new. I think there's no code kind of concept they've gotten. There are other tools as well in the market. And as I said, I mean, not necessarily each tool will kind of satisfy each and every of your problem statements. You'll have to take a look at it. Perhaps Hivo can kind of solve those data integration problems. They have some data pipelines which can be used into automation perspective. There are some features I would say Hivo has inbuilt. You can take a look at it, and maybe offline you can test it out as well in your systems. With that, I would say giving back to you, Priyanka.
Thank you, Darshan. That was indeed a very insightful presentation. I'm sure the audience had so much to learn from this. Audience, it is now the Q&A round. If you have any questions, there's a Q&A window. Please type in your questions and we can address them here. Yes, you can have a Hivo demo. Please write to me, priyanka@hivomail.com, and we will schedule a demo for you. So, Darshan, there is one question here. With the evolution of technology like low code or no code or other tools for transformation, what will be the future of the job market in data warehouse and BI space? Will there be a job cut? Will there be a reduction in jobs because of this?
Sorry, just talking about. So don't get bogged with the job market. I think it's a valid question, but it's immaterial. I mean, so far I've been looking into the industry. There's always something new which comes in, and there's always something challenging which will keep you abreast. So even there is no code, I mean, believe me, way back in 1995, what was big data? The definition of big data way back in 1995 was something in terabytes, was even in kind of not even terabytes, was kind of termed as big data. Then Hadoop came into picture with the cheapest commodity hardware. The definition changed, and we saw Cassandras and Kafkas coming into picture. With cloud coming into picture, I think that the term big data has kind of really gone way beyond its stuff. But does it mean it has really kind of people have lost their jobs? No, people have not lost their jobs. There's no shortage, I think, from a talent perspective. What really is important is to adapt to those changes. I mean, learning those tools and technologies is very, very crucial. Having a know about those new technologies is very, very critical. For the current job market, if you see, I mean, the traditional tools are still there, but over a period of time, slowly, those traditional will be totally, completely taken over by the newest tools. And then that's the kind of law of nature. I mean, the old things will phase out and the new things will come in. So I don't think there is any problem or shortage of jobs. It's more of getting adaptive to the new changes is very, very crucial. I think that's what will sail you through.
And automation definitely makes
Yeah.
life easier as well. So why struggle so much when it's all automated? So can Hivo integrate sources into Dropbox, Google Sheets? The destinations listed in the website are all databases. Yes. So for more information on our product, Suguna, we will schedule a call with you. We will, have a demo and we will talk to you in depth about our product. And yes, you will get a recording of the webinar after this session. So does anyone have any more questions? Let's make this an interactive session. It can be any question. Maybe we can give it another 10 seconds, Darshan, if that's okay with you.
Sure, I'm fine.
Okay. I'm sure some of you have a few questions about data warehouse automation. Please do type them here and we'll address them.
So maybe I'll just pick up a point. Again, when I started, I said it's more fundamental. And that is very true. I think more logical things happen at an architecture level. Things which are, okay, I see one more question out there. Okay.
Yeah.
So more logical things happen at an architectural level. But bring in your ideas whenever you're working in a project. Doesn't matter if you're a fresher or you're an experienced developer or you're an architect. If you feel things can be really improved, go for it. Talk about it with your leads. Talk about it with your tech arcs. Get those things. Lot many times, somebody might just miss upon those ideas. So it doesn't mean that those ideas are bad or cannot be implemented. I mean, give it always a holistic thought in terms of what can be done better. That there are n number of things you can automate. There are n number of possibilities, tools and technologies you can use from an automation perspective. So there is no shortage of ideas. It's the implementation, and at the end, I mean, it always comes to what is the return of investment. That's where the buck will come and stop. But anyways, ideas are good. Think about different aspects in terms of your warehouses, the problem statements, the challenges that you face on a day-to-day in a production support, or when you're building your warehouses, or if you're in the consumption side of data visualization, data reporting, what are the challenges you feel? Try to get them and at an abstract level. I mean, just from your physical in deep inside the code, think at an abstract level. What can help you change things and do better? That's very important. Okay, so there's one more question. How much coding knowledge do I need to order to become a data engineer? Okay, my simplest answer is you definitely have to have a thorough knowledge of SQL for sure. Without a SQL knowledge, you really cannot be a data engineer. So whichever tool you pick up, whether it's a low code, no code, or everything automated, you still need to fire some queries at some point in time. It's a reporting side or if it's a processing side, because with that, you'll kind of get into a lot of things. Okay, there are more questions coming in. Okay, I'll pick up the last one, then I think we'll close. What do I need to do to master in SQL in order to become a data engineer? Okay. Yeah, I think you can really go to some crash courses for sure. I think practice is what will make you perfect. And I'll just share one example. I take so many interviews, typically from a developer perspective, and I'll share that question with all of you. So I typically, if I see an individual is from a support background, I tend to ask him very simple question. What is the difference between a select count of one from a table versus select count of star from a table? If the person is able to answer that question, I just select him. That's all. If the person is struggling with that answer, I mean, no way I'm going to select him for sure. So that because the idea is if you play with your sequels, you understand what is really happening behind the scenes. You try to understand what is the basic functionality. Why? Because the sequels kind of tend to give the same results, but there is a certain change in terms of what you write, when you write, and how you write the sequel. So with that will come only with practice. But again, you can really take a data set for practice, try to analyze, try to find out different features, try to aggregate in different mechanisms. I think if you try to hit multiple data sets multiple times, you'll get that slowly, for sure. Okay. Okay, good.
So thanks a lot, Darshan. That was, a great session, and thanks for making it so interactive. The audience has also been great. So thank you, audience, for joining us for today's session. I hope you've all enjoyed this event. For any feedback, do write to us at events@hivodata.com. Also, Darshan, thanks a lot again, for sharing all your insights and your knowledge with all of us. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to conduct our next webinar on the 12th of April, that is next Tuesday, on the topic Building and Managing the Modern Data Store, the Data Lake House. Please join us for this interesting panel discussion to discover the Data Lake House. We will send you the webinar details over an email, or you can check it out on our website, www.hivodata.com. So I see that most of you are interested to know more about Hivo. So we can schedule a demo with our product expert, and you can also visit our website. And I'm going to type in our website in the chat window. You can click on it and sign up for our free trial. And if you have any questions or feedback about this webinar, please write to us at events@hivodata.com. Thank you all so much for attending, and see you next Tuesday. See you there. Bye-bye.